Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. She thought her biggest problem was the $1,500 rent overdue notice taped to her door, until her phone rang with a desperate plea from her cousin. "Zoe, I'm too sick to move and have this important airport pickup." Katie's voice croaked through the phone, sounding like she'd swallowed gravel. Zoe Bennett clutched her sketchbook, staring at the half-finished illustrations due to her professor tomorrow, then at the final notice letter with bold red text. The commission from her cousin's boss would cover half her rent. She couldn't afford to say no. "Just look for a tall guy in a dark suit coming off Flight 1121 from New York," Katie explained between coughs. "Hold up a sign with Jackson Holdings and take him straight to the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's already booked and paid for." The terminal buzzed with frantic energy as Zoe stood awkwardly holding her makeshift sign, drawn with the artistic flair she couldn't resist adding. People rushed past in waves, dragging luggage and trailing perfume scents that mingled with the smell of airport coffee. Zoe checked her watch again, 40 minutes late now, when a commanding presence cut through the crowd. He wasn't just tall. He moved like someone who expected the world to clear a path, his custom suit fitting perfectly over broad shoulders. His eyes, cold and assessing, locked onto her sign, then traveled slowly up to her face. "Jackson Holdings?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of surprise beneath its authoritative tone. "Yes, you must be Mr. Jackson." Zoe extended her hand, noticing his expensive watch and the way other travelers instinctively stepped aside. "I'm filling in for Katie today. She's come down with something awful." He hesitated for just a moment before taking her hand, his grip firm and controlled. "Call me Jack," he said, studying her with an intensity that made her skin tingle with an inexplicable warning sensation. The expensive leather of his carry-on bag caught Zoe's eye as she led him toward the exit, noticing how he scanned the terminal with practiced precision. Something about his vigilance seemed excessive for a business executive. "My car's this way." Zoe pointed toward the economy lot, fumbling for her keys. "It's nothing fancy, but it'll get us to your hotel." Jack's expression darkened as he pulled out his phone, checking something before looking back at her with narrowed eyes. "There's been a change of plans," he stated flatly, placing his hand gently but firmly on her elbow. Two black SUVs with tinted windows pulled smoothly to the curb, as if summoned by invisible command. A broad-shouldered man in a dark suit stepped out, nodding respectfully to Jack before opening the rear door. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," Jack said quietly, guiding Zoe toward the waiting vehicle. "But now isn't the time or place to discuss it." A chill ran down Zoe's spine as she noticed the subtle bulge beneath the driver's jacket, unmistakably a holstered gun. "Wait, I think I should call Katie and clarify," she started, her voice trailing off as Jack's grip tightened slightly. "Your cousin works for Preston Jackson," he stated. Not a question, but a confirmation. "I'm not him, and getting into this car with me is either the worst mistake of your life or the best." The leather seat felt cool against Zoe's back as the city blurred past the tinted windows. Jack sat beside her, typing rapidly on his phone, occasionally giving clipped instructions to the driver in what sounded like code. "Who are you really?" Zoe finally asked, clutching her bag to her chest like a shield. "And why did you let me believe you were my cousin's boss's associate?" Jack's eyes met hers, calculating and unreadable. "I'm Jack Winters. As for what I do, let's just say I manage certain aspects of Los Angeles that don't appear in tourist brochures." Zoe's art-trained eyes caught details she wished she hadn't. The barely visible scar along his jawline, the calloused knuckles that spoke of violence, and most alarmingly, the deference shown by men who looked dangerous themselves. "You're not in regular business, are you?" "Smart girl," Jack replied, a hint of appreciation warming his tone. "The real Mr. Jackson was never on that flight. He sent his apologies this morning. Someone wanted me to think my usual driver would be there." The realization hit Zoe like a splash of ice water. She wasn't just in the wrong car with the wrong man. She had unwittingly stepped into something dangerous. "So I'm what? A witness now? A liability?" Jack studied her face with renewed interest, as if seeing beyond her worn jeans and paint-stained fingers to something valuable beneath. "Actually, you might be my unexpected solution to a very specific problem." The car turned through ornate gates into a secluded driveway, where a Mediterranean-style mansion rose before them, beautiful and fortress-like. Men with earpieces patrolled the immaculate gardens with military precision. "Welcome to my home," Jack said, his voice softening slightly as he helped her from the car. You'll stay here tonight while I sort out who was expecting to meet me at the airport and why. The grand entrance hall gleamed with marble and tasteful opulence, but Zoe's attention was drawn to the subtle security features, cameras disguised as light fixtures, staff with alert eyes scanning constantly. I can't stay here. I have class tomorrow and illustrations due. You'll have everything you need, Jack assured her, signaling to an elegant older woman who appeared silently at his side. Mrs. Rivera will show you to a guest room and bring your art supplies. The weight of Jack's authority pressed against Zoe as a young man approached, whispering something urgent in his ear. Jack's expression hardened instantly, the brief warmth vanishing like smoke. The Salviano family sends their regards, Jack said to the man, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. Tell them I received their message, but they'll regret delivering it this way. Zoe felt the blood drain from her face as realization dawned with terrible clarity. You're not just some businessman with security concerns, she whispered, taking an instinctive step back. You're the head of the Winters family, Jack confirmed, watching her reaction carefully. What some outdated news reports might call a mafia boss, though I prefer alternative business strategist. The guest room rivaled luxury hotel suites Zoe had only seen in magazines, with silk sheets and a balcony overlooking illuminated gardens where armed men patrolled discreetly. The beautiful prison made her situation no less terrifying. Mrs. Rivera delivered an easel, premium art supplies, and a selection of clothes that somehow perfectly matched Zoe's size. Mr. Winters requested these for your comfort, she explained, her kind eyes containing a warning Zoe couldn't quite interpret. Sleep eluded Zoe as she pieced together the day's events, sketching Jack's face almost unconsciously, capturing the contradiction of his cold authority and the brief moments of surprising gentleness. The charcoal lines revealed something her conscious mind resisted acknowledging. Morning brought a knock and an invitation to breakfast on the terrace, delivered by a staff member who politely but firmly made it clear this wasn't optional. The sunlight illuminated the grounds, revealing the true scale of the estate and its security measures. Jack awaited her, reading financial reports while sipping espresso, looking more like a CEO than a criminal kingpin in his tailored shirt, with sleeves rolled to expose strong forearms. You slept well, I hope? As well as anyone can while being held against their will, Zoe replied, helping herself to fresh fruit from the spread before them. Though I appreciate the art supplies, a thoughtful touch for a kidnapping. A rare smile briefly transformed Jack's face, revealing perfect teeth and unexpected dimples. You're not a prisoner, Zoe. You're under my protection until I determine who set up that airport meeting and why they involved your cousin. The sound of her name on his lips sent an unwelcome shiver down Zoe's spine as she noticed his eyes lingering on the charcoal smudges on her fingers. My cousin has nothing to do with whatever this is. She's just an assistant at a legitimate business. Every business in this city has connections, Jack replied, sliding a folder across the table. Jackson Holdings has recently acquired properties that encroach on territories with established ownership. Your cousin's boss is playing a dangerous game. The portfolio contained property deeds, financial statements, and surveillance photos, showing Katie's boss meeting with stern-faced men in expensive suits. These are the Salviano family's lieutenants, Jack explained, tapping one image. Direct competitors to my operations. Zoe's art-trained eye caught patterns in the documents that even Jack seemed to miss. Recurring signatures, properties forming a strategic pattern across the city map. These acquisitions form a corridor straight through your territory, don't they? Jack's expression sharpened with interest as he leaned forward. His cologne, subtle notes of cedar and something distinctly masculine, momentarily distracting Zoe from the danger of her situation. You have an exceptional eye for patterns. A sharp crack echoed across the gardens, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Jack moved with startling speed, pulling Zoe beneath the table as security personnel swarmed the terrace with military precision. Stay down, Jack commanded, his body shielding hers as he drew a weapon from beneath his jacket. It seems the Salvianos are impatient for my response to their message. The gunfire subsided after 20 tense minutes, replaced by urgent voices and tactical commands as Jack's security team secured the perimeter. Through the chaos, Zoe remained acutely aware of Jack's protective arm around her shoulders. Status report, Jack demanded as a man with a facial scar approached, holstering his weapon. How many were there? And did we capture any for questioning? 6 shooters, boss. 2 down. The rest escaped in a black Escalade, the man reported, his eyes flickering briefly to Zoe with undisguised curiosity. Surveillance caught the license plates, registered to a shell company linked to the Salvianos. Jack helped Zoe to her feet, his hand lingering at the small of her back as he guided her inside through bullet-riddled patio doors. "This changes things," he said quietly, his voice carrying a dangerous edge beneath its controlled surface. The mansion transformed into a war room as men in suits arrived, speaking in hushed tones while screens displayed security footage, property maps, and what appeared to be police scanner frequencies. Jack moved through it all like a conductor before an orchestra. "I need to return to my apartment," Zoe insisted, watching Jack review security footage with growing anxiety. "My professor will fail me if I don't submit these illustrations tomorrow. I'll lose my scholarship." Jack turned to her, conflict briefly visible in his eyes before his expression hardened again. "The Salvianos now know your face. If you leave here, you'll be dead before you reach campus. Or worse, used as leverage against me." Zoe's protest died on her lips as the implications sank in. "Why would they use me as leverage? I'm nothing to you. Just a random girl who happened to be holding the wrong sign at the wrong time." A sleek, dark-haired woman entered, eyeing Zoe with professional assessment before handing Jack a tablet. Facial recognition confirmed it. The Salvianos are circulating her image to their people. They think she's connected to you personally. "They think I'm your girlfriend," Zoe whispered as realization dawned, noticing the respectful distance Jack's associates maintained. "That's why they're targeting me. They think hurting me would hurt you." Jack's jaw tightened as he handed the tablet back to his associate. "Perception becomes reality in my world. Whether you are or aren't connected to me no longer matters. They believe you are, which makes you valuable." The tension in the room shifted as Jack's phone buzzed with an incoming text. His expression darkened further as he read the message, then passed the phone to Zoe with surprising gentleness. The text contained a photo of Katie's apartment door, splattered with red paint and a clear warning. "Your cousin is now in danger too," Jack stated, watching Zoe's face pale. "My men are bringing her here for protection." Zoe's hands trembled as she passed the phone back, feeling the trap closing around her. "So, I dragged my cousin into this mess too, all because I needed money for rent and took her place for one stupid airport pickup. Sometimes fate has unexpected designs," Jack replied, surprising her by gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Your artistic talent might have just saved your life. Few would have noticed the pattern in those property acquisitions." The day passed in a blur as security tightened around the estate. Katie arrived pale-faced and terrified, and Zoe found herself drawn deeper into Jack's world. Evening found her sketching nervously in the library, trying to focus on her assignment. The library door opened as Jack entered, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up after hours of strategic meetings. He paused, observing Zoe's concentrated focus as her hands moved swiftly across the paper, creating life with each precise stroke. "Your talent is extraordinary," he commented, stepping closer to examine the illustration of a phoenix rising from urban ruins, her assignment reinterpreted through the lens of her current circumstances. "You see things others miss, including me." Zoe glanced up, surprised by the genuine admiration in his voice. "Art is about finding patterns, seeing beyond surfaces to the truth beneath. Not so different from what you do, I imagine." Jack sat across from her, pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "I was born into this life, my father's only son and heir to an empire built on blood and fear. What's your excuse for seeing so clearly into darkness? Foster care teaches you to read people quickly, to see the gap between what they say and what they mean," Zoe answered, accepting the offered glass despite herself. "Art became my way of revealing those hidden truths." Their conversation flowed with surprising ease as night deepened around them, moving from art to philosophy, from painful childhoods to ambitious dreams. Jack revealed glimpses of vulnerability beneath his armor of power, while Zoe found herself drawn to his sharp intelligence. Morning light spilled through windows as Zoe awoke on the library couch, covered with an expensive cashmere throw she didn't remember. Jack was gone, but her completed illustration sat in a protective portfolio with a note. "Your professor won't fail you. Car waiting whenever you're ready." Katie sat in the breakfast room, looking considerably calmer as she sipped coffee. "Jack explained everything," she said, as Zoe joined her. "Apparently my boss is laundering money for the Salviano family. I've been unwittingly helping criminals for months." Zoe's illustrations earned her not just passing marks, but special recognition from her professor, who marveled at the emotional depth she'd suddenly achieved. "There's a darkness and light battling in these pieces, a maturity I hadn't seen in your work before." 2 weeks passed in a strange new routine. Zoe attended classes with a security detail discreetly watching from a distance, while evenings found her back at Jack's estate, her artistic perspective proving increasingly valuable to his strategic planning. Zoe's art professor pulled her aside after class, eyebrows raised in curious concern. "Your work has taken on an intensity I've never seen before," he noted, studying her face. "It's like you've suddenly gained access to a world most people only imagine exists." The gallery where Zoe worked part-time became a neutral meeting ground, with Jack occasionally appearing to view new exhibitions. Fellow art students whispered about her mysterious collector, who arrived in black SUVs and spoke knowledgeably about Renaissance techniques and modern abstracts alike. During late nights in Jack's study, Zoe began sketching alternative business models, legitimate ventures that could gradually replace his family's more questionable income sources. Her outsider perspective identified opportunities in art investment, urban renovation, and cultural centers in neglected neighborhoods. The garden path crunched beneath their feet as Jack showed Zoe the hidden beauty of his world: rare flowers in the greenhouse, sculptures commissioned from master artists, and a view of the city lights that made Los Angeles look like a galaxy spread at their feet. "My father built this empire through fear," Jack confessed, as they stood side by side watching the sunset paint the sky in violent crimson. "I've been trying to transform it, move our businesses toward legitimacy, but the old ways are hard to escape." Zoe's hand found his almost without conscious thought. "Perhaps what you need is someone who sees things differently, someone who can envision a new pattern for your empire." Jack turned to her, his expression more open than she'd ever seen it as his fingers interlaced with hers, the moment suspended between them, electric with possibility, until the sharp ring of his phone shattered it like glass. "We have a problem," he said, after answering, his voice returning to the cold, controlled tone of the Mafia boss. "The Salvianos have made their move. They've taken the riverfront property and left 3 of our men dead as a message." The car sped through nighttime streets as Jack and his security detail rushed toward the scene of the attack. Zoe sat beside him, clutching a sketch pad filled with the property maps she'd been analyzing when the call came. "You shouldn't be here," Jack said tensely, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "This could get dangerous, and I can't guarantee your safety once we're on site." Zoe met his gaze steadily, holding up her sketches. "These buildings form a pattern I recognized from architectural history. They're creating a network of connected properties with underground access points. I need to see the riverfront building to confirm." The industrial district loomed dark and forbidding as they arrived, police lights reflecting off the water while Jack's men established a perimeter. Black body bags lined the loading dock, the human cost of business in Jack's world made brutally tangible. "Wait here," Jack ordered, squeezing her hand briefly before stepping out to confer with his lieutenants. Zoe watched through the window, struck by how naturally he commanded respect from hardened men twice his age. The familiar voice behind her froze Zoe's blood. "Hello, cousin," Katie said, sliding into the seat Jack had vacated, a small pistol pointed casually at Zoe's ribs. Surprise. "Katie, what are you doing?" Zoe whispered, her mind struggling to process the betrayal, as her cousin's formerly frightened expression transformed into something cold and calculating. "My name isn't actually Katie," she replied with a smirk, checking to ensure Jack was still occupied outside. "The Salviano family placed me as your cousin years ago, a deep cover assignment waiting for the perfect opportunity." Shock washed over Zoe as fragments of memories realigned, Katie appearing in her life after her last foster home, becoming her only family, subtly steering her toward certain choices. Everything was a lie? Our whole relationship? "Not everything," not Katie answered, genuine regret briefly crossing her features. "I did grow fond of you, which makes this unfortunate. Now move slowly. We're going to slip away while your boyfriend is distracted." The cold barrel of the gun pressed against Zoe's side as they exited the car through the opposite door, moving swiftly toward a waiting sedan. Zoe's mind raced, cataloging details, searching for opportunities as her training and observation served a new purpose. "The Salvianos want Jack's territory, but they want him broken first," not Katie explained as she pushed Zoe into the back seat. "Taking something he loves is step 1. His father's method was using fear, but Jack's weakness is his heart." The sedan pulled away from the scene as Zoe caught a final glimpse of Jack turning, his expression changing from confusion to alarm as he spotted her being driven away. For the first time, true fear entered his eyes. "You'll never break him," Zoe stated with surprising calm as the city blurred past the windows. "Jack Winters isn't just some thug, he's visionary, and he'll see through whatever you're planning." Not Katie laughed, the sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, we're counting on his vision. What do you think he'll see when we send him your finger first? Artists need their hands, don't they?" The car swerved suddenly, as a motorcycle cut dangerously close to their bumper, forcing the driver to brake hard. Not Katie cursed, glancing nervously in the rearview mirror before pressing a button on her phone. "We might have a tail. Take the tunnel route." Zoe memorized every turn, every landmark they passed, mentally mapping their journey against the property diagrams she'd studied. The pattern was becoming clearer. They were moving deeper into a network of connected buildings, all strategically positioned along former waterways. The distinct sound of a text notification broke the tense silence, and Not Katie checked her phone with a frown. "Interesting. Your boyfriend isn't reacting as expected. No frantic calls, no desperate ransom offers. He's being suspiciously calm about losing his new favorite toy. A flicker of something, respect perhaps, crossed Not Katie's face as she studied Zoe. You know, in another life, we could have been actual family. You have qualities the organization values: adaptability, observational skills, loyalty. It's almost a shame we're on opposite sides." The car entered an underground parking structure beneath one of the properties Zoe had identified in her pattern analysis. The architectural significance she'd recognized wasn't just academic. It was strategic, creating a fortress hidden in plain sight. Harsh fluorescent lights illuminated an elegantly dressed man waiting beside a concrete pillar, his smile pleasant, and his eyes utterly without mercy. "Welcome, Ms. Bennett," he greeted with exaggerated courtesy. "I'm Mr. Salviano. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Zoe assessed the concrete room where Salviano's men had secured her to a chair, her artist's eye cataloging every detail: the single door with electronic keypad, the camera mounted in the corner, the drain in the floor that suggested this room had seen blood before. "Your cousin, or rather my agent, tells me you've become quite valuable to Jack Winters," Salviano said conversationally as he poured himself a drink. "An artist who sees patterns, who understands connections others miss." Zoe kept her expression neutral, remembering Jack's advice during one of their late-night conversations. In negotiation, the one who speaks first usually loses. She remained silent, studying Salviano's expensive suit and manicured hands that had never seen honest labor. "Interesting. He's taught you something of our world already," Salviano observed with a hint of admiration. "No begging, no tears, just assessment and calculation. I see why he keeps you close." A cell phone was thrust before Zoe's face, showing a video call connecting to Jack. His expression remained impassive when he saw her, but she caught the slight tightening around his eyes, the only tell of his fury that most would miss. Behind Jack, Zoe glimpsed a wall of surveillance monitors displaying various angles of the Salviano compound, including the very room where she was being held. The realization hit her like lightning. Jack had already infiltrated their security systems long before her capture. Salviano's polished veneer concealed an underlying desperation that leaked through in small tells. A compulsive straightening of his already perfect cuffs, the slight tremor in his left hand when Jack spoke. He was playing a game with rules he hadn't fully mastered. The guard stationed by the door kept touching his earpiece, his expression growing increasingly concerned with each update. Something was happening beyond these concrete walls, a carefully orchestrated chaos that Zoe suspected had Jack's strategic fingerprints all over it. "Your artist is my guest now, Winters," Salviano announced, turning the phone to show his own face. "A trade seems appropriate. The Riverside properties and shipping rights for the girl's safe return." Jack's voice came through calm and measured, revealing nothing of his emotions. "Proof of life first. Let her speak, and I'll consider your terms." The phone turned back to Zoe, and she seized her moment with calculated precision. "Jack, the buildings connect underground. The pattern forms a star with the center at—" Her words cut off as Salviano slapped her hard across the face. "Smart girl, trying to relay tactical information," Salviano said, genuine respect coloring his tone as he dabbed a handkerchief at the blood on her lip. "But unnecessary. By morning, Winters will have agreed to my terms regardless." Hours passed in tense silence as Zoe worked at her restraints, the artistic dexterity of her fingers proving useful in ways she'd never anticipated. Darkness fell, marked only by the changing of guards outside her door and the steady drip of a leaking pipe overhead. In the dimness, Zoe noticed something peculiar. The concrete wall behind her chair had small markings, almost invisible unless you knew to look for them. Her trained eye recognized them instantly as coded messages left by previous captives. a grim calendar of suffering. The sound of heated argument filtered through the door, Salviano's men disagreeing about something critical. One voice insisted on moving immediately, while another claimed Jack's forces couldn't possibly have located them so quickly without an inside source. Zoe tested the chair's legs against the floor, feeling a slight wobble in one, a structural weakness she could exploit. With methodical patience learned from detailed brushwork, she began applying rhythmic pressure, using her body weight strategically with each movement. A small puddle of water from the leaking pipe had collected within her reach, and Zoe managed to dampen the rope binding her right wrist. The liquid might provide just enough lubrication to create space between the fibers as the material expanded with moisture. A distant explosion rocked the building's foundation, followed by alarms and shouting. Salviano burst through the door, his composure shattered, barking orders to his men about securing the perimeter and moving their valuable asset immediately. "It seems your boyfriend values you more than his business interests," Salviano spat, grabbing Zoe's arm roughly as gunfire echoed through the corridors. "You'll make an excellent human shield as we exit." The concrete hallway strobed with emergency lights as Salviano dragged Zoe toward an elevator, his gun pressed against her temple. Through broken windows, she glimpsed tactical teams moving with military precision across the compound, Jack's forces converging on the building. A familiar voice came over the building's hijacked intercom system. "Salviano, there's nowhere to run. Every exit is covered, every escape route blocked. Release her unharmed, and we can negotiate terms that don't end with your funeral." "Your father would never have risked his entire operation for a woman," Salviano shouted toward the ceiling, his desperation evident as sweat beaded on his forehead. "You've become weak, Winters. Sentiment will be your downfall." The elevator doors opened to reveal not an escape route but Jack himself, flanked by his most trusted lieutenants. "My father ruled through fear," he stated calmly, his eyes fixed on Zoe's. "I prefer loyalty. It runs deeper and lasts longer." The standoff balanced on a knife's edge. Salviano's gun pressed to Zoe's temple, Jack's men with weapons trained on Salviano, and between them, the weight of generations of violence and retribution. The air itself seemed to vibrate with lethal potential. "Even if you kill me, you'll never leave this building alive," Jack said with deadly calm, his eyes never leaving Zoe's. "Is that worth dying for? A vendetta your father started 30 years ago over a woman who chose my father instead?" Salviano's grip tightened painfully on Zoe's arm as his composure cracked. She was everything to him, the only good thing in his life. Your father took her, married her, then discarded her when she'd served his purpose. Understanding dawned on Zoe with stunning clarity. The source of the generational hatred, the wound that had festered for decades. "She was your mother," she whispered, feeling Salviano's slight flinch of confirmation against her back. "Half-brother, technically," Jack replied, his expression softening with something like regret. "My father never acknowledged him, treated his mother as a mistake to be hidden away. The sins of the fathers passed to the sons." The tension fractured as police sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights flashing through the windows. "You called the cops?" Salviano asked incredulously, his gun wavering slightly. "You'd risk exposure of your own operations?" Jack took a careful step forward, hands slightly raised in a gesture of negotiation. "I told you, I'm trying to build something different. Legitimate businesses, political connections, a future beyond blood feuds and territory wars." The fluorescent lights flickered ominously, casting harsh shadows that transformed faces into masks of intention. Zoe caught a subtle hand signal from Jack, the same gesture he'd taught her during their late-night strategy sessions when discussing contingency plans. Salviano's breathing changed, growing shallow and rapid as the reality of his situation crystallized. "You've been planning this for months," he realized aloud, his voice barely audible beneath the wail of approaching sirens. "The property acquisitions, the territorial disputes, all bait. Years of rivalry and bloodshed balanced on this fragile moment. Decades of retribution cycles potentially ending in this sterile corridor." Zoe saw something unexpected flash across Jack's features as he looked at his half-brother, not hatred or triumph, but a profound weariness with violence itself. "FBI, nobody move!" commanded a voice as tactical teams in federal windbreakers poured into the corridor, weapons raised. The moment crystallized in perfect stillness before erupting into chaos. In the split second before violence exploded, Zoe felt Salviano's grip loosen as indecision paralyzed him. She drove her elbow backward with all her strength, just as Jack had taught her during late-night self-defense lessons in his home gym. Jack moved with liquid speed as Salviano staggered, disarming him with professional efficiency before the FBI could mistake the situation. "Agent Cooper, right on time," he called to the lead officer with the familiarity of prior arrangement. "The Winters family has been working with us for 6 months," explained Agent Cooper, as officers secured Salviano and his men, providing evidence against the Salviano cartel's drug trafficking and human smuggling operations in exchange for immunity. Zoe felt the ground shift beneath her understanding of Jack's world as he wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, his touch gentle, despite the violence of moments before. "You've been an informant? This whole time?" The jacket carried Jack's scent, cedar and something distinctly him, wrapping Zoe in a cocoon of safety that felt surreal after hours of captivity. Through the building's shattered windows, dawn light began filtering across the city, painting even the industrial wasteland in hopeful hues of pink and gold. Agent Cooper approached with a tablet displaying pages of legal documents. "Ms. Bennett, your statement will be crucial to closing the Salviano case. Your observations about the property connections provided the final pieces we needed for the RICO charges." A flash of unexpected emotion crossed Salviano's face as officers led him past. Not hatred or rage, but something more complex. "Ask him about your mother, Jack," he called out, his voice carrying a bitter edge. "Ask him who really made the decision to send her away." "My father built his empire on fear and blood," Jack replied, guiding her away from the chaos toward a waiting car. "I'm rebuilding it on intelligence and strategy, including knowing when the old ways have to die." The city lights blurred through tears as exhaustion finally caught up with Zoe in the back seat of Jack's car. "Katie, or whatever her name is, she was never my cousin. My entire family connection was a lie constructed for Salviano's vendetta. Family isn't always blood," Jack said quietly, pulling her closer as the car wound through empty streets toward dawn. "Sometimes it's the people who see you clearly and choose to stay anyway, despite knowing the darkest parts of who you are." 1 year later, the Winters Gallery opened its doors in downtown Los Angeles, showcasing emerging artists from disadvantaged backgrounds. Zoe adjusted the lighting on the centerpiece installation, a phoenix rising from urban ruins, her signature work reimagined on a massive scale. "The mayor just arrived with the arts commissioner," Jack murmured, appearing at her side in an impeccably tailored suit. His empire had transformed. Nightclubs converted to performance venues, protection rackets evolved into legitimate security firms, and his family name now associated with the city's cultural renaissance. Zoe straightened his tie with practiced ease, their domesticity a still surprising comfort after months of building their shared vision. "And Agent Cooper? Will our FBI friend be making an appearance at the opening?" "Front row, along with the DA who helped negotiate my immunity deal," Jack replied with a slight smile. "They're quite proud of their reformed criminal turned philanthropist. Makes for excellent press at budget hearings." The former Katie, now serving 20 years in federal prison, had revealed the full extent of Salviano's organization during plea negotiations. Her testimony, combined with Jack's evidence, had dismantled 3 major crime families, while allowing the Winters empire to emerge legitimized. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed," Zoe admitted, surveying the gallery that had once been a money laundering front. "From nearly homeless art student to gallery director in 12 months, all because I picked up the wrong man at the airport." Jack's fingers intertwined with hers, the gesture intimate and possessive. "Nothing about it was wrong, just unexpected. The moment you held up that sign with your artistic flourishes, the old path was already crumbling." The gallery hummed with Los Angeles elite, admiring works created by former gang members, foster children, and others who had found redemption through art. Each piece told a story of transformation, mirroring the journey of the gallery itself. "Your father would be rolling in his grave," commented Mrs. Rivera, who had transitioned seamlessly from household manager to gallery administrator, using family money to fund rehabilitation programs instead of expanding territory. Revolutionary. Jack watched as Zoe guided a group of teenage artists through the exhibition, her passion illuminating her face as she explained the importance of their perspectives. "My father built his legacy on breaking things, including people. Our legacy will be different." Among the exhibition guests, Zoe spotted a familiar face, her former professor, who had once warned her about wasting her talent. He stood transfixed before a collaborative mural created by former gang members, his previous skepticism transformed into stunned appreciation. The building itself told a story of transformation. What had once been a warehouse for illegal goods now housed dreams and aspirations. Original support beams remained visible among modern renovations, a deliberate architectural choice symbolizing how strength could be repurposed rather than destroyed. Children from local schools moved through the gallery in chaperoned groups, their wide eyes absorbing possibilities they'd never imagined for themselves. One small boy with paint-stained fingers stood motionless before Zoe's phoenix, whispering to his teacher that he could feel it breathing. The exhibition centerpiece drew consistent crowds, a mixed media installation depicting a city in transformation, with hidden patterns visible only from certain angles. Critics had already hailed it as a breakthrough work, representing the duality of urban existence. A particular visitor lingered before the centerpiece longer than most, an elderly man leaning heavily on an ornate cane, his weathered face mapping decades of hard decisions. Jack tensed visibly when he noticed him, moving protectively toward Zoe as the man approached. "My son always had vision beyond mere territory," the old man remarked, his voice carrying the gravelly texture of someone who had once commanded fear with a whisper. "Though I never imagined the Winter's legacy would evolve into this creative direction." The gallery fell momentarily silent as father and son faced each other after years of estrangement, the old guard of power through violence meeting its evolution into influence through transformation. Zoe watched the subtle shift in Jack's posture, standing taller, no longer seeking approval but offering reconciliation on his own terms. "The reviews are exceptional," Agent Cooper noted, appearing beside Jack with 2 champagne glasses, though they missed the most interesting part, that the cityscape precisely maps the former territories of Los Angeles crime families, now converted to community spaces. Jack accepted the drink with a nod of acknowledgement. The best transformations preserve history, while creating something new from its foundations. The past shouldn't be erased, just reimagined with greater purpose. The evening culminated with Zoe unveiling a scholarship program for young artists from the foster system, funded by the newly established Winters Foundation. Her speech, passionate and personal, brought tears to eyes throughout the crowd as she described art's power to reveal hidden truths. Later, as the last guests departed, Jack led Zoe to the gallery rooftop, where a small table awaited with dinner and the glittering Los Angeles skyline as backdrop. "I have something for you," he said, revealing a small velvet box. Inside lay not a ring as she had momentarily expected, but a familiar item, the airport pickup sign she had created that fateful day, preserved and framed alongside a hand-drawn map, showing their journey from that first meeting to the present moment. "Some mistakes are not meant to be corrected," Jack said softly, echoing words Zoe had written in her artist's statement. "They are meant to lead us home." Thank you all for following this story. If you're enjoying it, write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video, because your support is important for me to continue here.